It is amazing that he is still so popular. He didn't think he would be that popular at all, because in the late 50s and the early 1960s, the sales of his books were really going down, and he didn't even think the Narnia Tales would be read a few decades after his death. So Walter Hooper used to like to joke that he would gladly wager C.S. Lewis that his books would continue to be read for generations, and that it's a bet that he won. But as to why, the context of his popularity has shifted. If he was very popular in 1940s and early 1950s England, the popularity shifted to America, and it seemed like in the 60s and the 70s, he got a lot of traction and a lot of recognition in the States, while it was still going down within England and Britain. And that's kind of the irony, is that the popularity is primarily American. And it was only until fairly recently that you could say the popularity was building up again in England. And perhaps the movies had something to do with this, the Narnia films. And perhaps the change of the guard, both within Oxford and Cambridge, as well as within the church, of those who had a kind of opposition to Lewis within his day and remembered him, as they started to make way for successive leaders and scholars, there was an openness and a freshness that was given to Lewis. I remember when I was a graduate student, I was trying to meet all the people who still knew Lewis and just ask anything I could, any recollections, any stories. And so I wrote to the then dean of Christ Church, one of the most impressive colleges within the university, a real center of scholarship and learning. And when I wrote to him asking, can you tell me anything about C.S. Lewis? I'm doing my doctorate on him. I'd be interested to meet with you. The reply that came back within the letter points to the lack of popularity of Lewis even in 1990s England. The dean wrote back, I think in a fountain pen, I have little interest and less knowledge of C.S. Lewis. Perhaps you should consult with Walter Hooper. Signed, so-and-so. And that was a telltale response about Lewis in England. So in America, however, he's been amazingly popular. And for whatever reason, he's gained a real foothold within evangelical circles, but especially in the past 2-3 decades within Roman Catholic circles as well. Within our Orthodox world, in his day, Metropolitan Anthony Bloom loved to read C.S. Lewis and Charles Williams. Metropolitan Kallistos Ware, certainly an admirer of Lewis and Tolkien and the writings of the Inklings. Within Orthodox circles, he's probably, maybe even still, the most popular and well-regarded Protestant writer. I don't know, maybe you do, any other Protestant writer that has really been so congenial to Orthodox thinkers. And I remember a talk given in 1999 or so in Oxford at the Oxford University C.S. Lewis Society, which was a group that was obviously favorable to Lewis, but comprised of Catholics and Anglicans, Orthodox, and even non-believers. And an Orthodox monk came to give a talk on Lewis. And one of the things that he picked up in Lewis's writings was that Lewis was exceptionally astute about the ascetic life, and used the Screwtape Letters as a kind of entree into that subject. And for somebody who didn't like contemporary trends in psychology, Lewis was remarkably psychologically astute, both in the human level, but also the spiritual level. And the Orthodox have seen this in his writings, at least in that book for sure. So the popularity, I think, like many writers, unlike many writers, he made a great effort not to write technical jargonese that was full of phrases and perhaps concepts that would be dated within 10 or 20 years. He wrote in a simple, plain Anglo-Saxon prose that could be read very easily in the 1930s and is certainly still easy to read in this millennium, though I was a little bit alarmed when teaching some students in Michigan in the early 2000s that as clear as Lewis's writing and thinking is, they found that the structure of his thought and the nature of his argument and prose in a book like Mere Christianity was actually difficult for them. So we'll see if the popularity endures, partly because people don't read that much anymore, and that books are very much going out of fashion and being replaced by video interviews and movies. So yeah, we'll see if it holds on. I pray it does.